Cysts form around the worms can sometimes cause abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, and malnutrition.
Using data from 2018 to 2019 health insurance claims, the average annual incidence of anisakiasis in Japan is around 19,700 cases.
Although historians generally agree that raw fish eating culture originated from China.
The primary parasites of concern with eating raw fish from fresh or saltwater are a few species each of cestodes, the tapeworms, nematodes, the roundworms, and trematodes, the flukes. The ratio between the number of parasite species and the number of parasite genera per host species was significantly higher in freshwater fish than in marine ones. In freshwater fish, the commonly found parasites are the cestodes of the Diphyllobothriidae family, especially the D. latum. They survive better in the human freshwater biome, which is around 5% salinity, than do saltwater-specific parasites. Saltwater biome in fishes is around 20% salinity. In saltwater fish, the commonly found parasites are the nematode roundworms, especially those of the genus Anisakis. These are regularly found in most seafood from cod to tuna. These parasites do not survive in the human stomach's freshwater environment. When ingested, they burrow into the intestinal walls, get stuck and die. This triggers an immune and sometimes allergic response. Cysts form around the worms can sometimes cause abdominal pain, vomiting, diarrhea, and malnutrition. But because humans are a dead-end host, anisakiasis will eventually abate. In most cases, the consumer is unaffected though, sometimes, symptomatic treatment may be necessary.
For both freshwater and saltwater fish alike, cooking the meat thoroughly rendered the parasites dead. People have known about parasites since ancient Egypt, China, Greece, and Rome. The first records of parasites is believed to be found in the ancient scripts of Egypt. This explains, in the early days, why our forefathers do not consume raw freshwater fish. Of note here, anadromous fishes, like salmon, can carry both fresh and saltwater parasites, since they spend time in both environments. At birth, the wild salmon fish hatches in the fresh waters, and are carried by the flowing river into the sea. At maturity, the salmon fish swims back to the rivers from the oceans to mate and lay eggs. Their next generation of salmon fish repeats this cycle of life and death. Cooking used to be the only way to effectively kill parasites in fish meat for immediate consumption. With the advancements in technology, we now learn that deep freezing can also kill these parasites. In US, the FDA provides specific standards for killing parasites for raw fish meat consumption. 1. Freezing and storing at ambient temperature of -4 degrees Fahrenheit, which is -20 degrees Celsius, or below for 7 days. 2. Freezing at ambient temperature of -31 degrees Fahrenheit, which is -35 degrees Celsius, or below until solid, and storage for 15 hours. The European Union also have similar safety standards. 1. Freezing and storage at -20 degrees Celsius or lower, for not less than 24 hours. 2. Freezing and storage at -35 degrees Celsius or lower, for not less than 15 hours. Good handling practices on board fishing vessels and in processing plants can minimize parasite infestation. Many seafood processors inspect seafood fillets of species likely to contain parasites. This process, called candling, involves examining fish fillets over lights. Candling detects surface parasites. Unfortunately, they cannot always see parasites embedded deep in thick fillets or in dark tissue.
Heating hot smoked fish to an internal temperature of at least 140 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 60 degrees Celsius, will kill all fish nematodes and tapeworms. Normal hot smoking procedures generally exceed this temperature. Dry salting fish, or curing them in a saturated salt brine, for 5 to 7 days before pickling, will kill nematodes and tapeworms. Pickling without salt curing may not destroy some nematodes. Contrary to some beliefs, wasabi and soy sauce do not kill the parasites in raw meat. Experiments had been conducted where raw meat were exposed to wasabi and soy sauce over prolonged periods. The results only affirms their roles as condiments rather than disinfectants. In Japan, where the pursuit of freshness has reached a point of epitome, the quality of sashimi is graded by how quickly the fish is consumed, from the moment it is caught in the seas, or harvested from the fish farm. The practice of eating salmon without deep freezing is still a prevalent practice. In 1990, there were 16,000 cases of anisakiasis, a form of food poisoning due to parasite infection, versus merely 600 cases outside of Japan. This is 25 times more cases within Japan than all other countries combined. Using data from 2018 to 2019 health insurance claims, the average annual incidence of anisakiasis in Japan is around 19,700 cases. Parasites are a natural occurrence, not contamination. They are as common in fish, as insects are in fruits and vegetables. There are 15,000 different wormly parasites that use fish as a host. The life cycle of an anisakid nematode begins when seals or sea lions eat infected fish. The larval nematodes grow to maturity, and the marine mammal excretes the nematode eggs into the sea where they hatch. Shrimp-like animals eat the larva, and fish eat the shrimp-like animals. The larvae then develop into the form we see in fish. The life cycle for a tapeworm is similar. Mammals or birds eat infected fish. The eggs hatch in freshwater. Crustaceans eat the eggs, freshwater and anadromous fish eat the crustaceans, and we eat the fish.
The practice of eating raw fish was introduced to Japan from China. Raw fish meat consumption was referred to as Ai. The earliest written records of this practice was found in the Book of Songs. During the spring and autumn period, which was approximately from 770 to 476 BC, records of Ai became more prevalent. During the Tang dynasty, which ruled from 618 to 907 AD, this culinary dish was very popular within China, and this was when it spread to Japan. Much later, the Compendium of Materia Medica, which was completed in 1578, linked a few parasitic diseases with consumption of raw fish. Eventually from the Ming dynasty to Qing dynasty, or during the period from 1368 to 1910, due to parasite infestation issues, the culture of raw fish consumption in China gradually disappeared. Only very few ethnic groups continued this practice. While raw fish consumption was gradually phased out in China, this dish gained popularity in Japan nationwide. Today, historians were able to attribute this phenomenon of culture explosion to the following. 1. Geographical reasons. Japan is an island nation surrounded by sea with little arable land. As a result, fish became a convenient choice as part of the diet. Besides, the waters around Japan is where large masses of warm water meets the cold. This provides thriving conditions to support huge shoals of fishes. Consumption of saltwater fish is generally safer option to prevent parasite-related food poisoning. 2. Social and historical reasons. During the 7th century AD, the Emperor of Japan promulgated the first meat ban in history. Eating meat from cattle, horses, dogs, apes or monkeys, and chickens was prohibited. This was actually to protect agricultural production. Cattle and horses can be carried on arable land. And chickens and dogs can be accorded to the time and place. Other meats such as pigs, fish and deer were not included in this ban. 3. Cultural reasons. Buddhism was introduced to Japan after about the 5th century AD, and was quickly embraced by all walks of life. Buddhism advocates the equality of all living beings, and killing is a crime. Therefore, in the later meat-eating prohibition order, the scope of meat prohibition became wider to include pigs. That is one less meat choice for the people, and one more fish choice for the diet.
To conclude, although historians generally agree that raw fish-eating culture originated from China, it is generally recognized by historians that this culture was inherited and carried forward in Japan after it found a foothold eastwards. While this has nothing to do with the contempt for traditions, it was hygiene and health reasons that attributed to the gradual discontinuation of this culinary culture in China. Rather, the unique conditions in Japan could have made it more conducive for this culture to thrive. In a way, the Japanese not only continued this culture, they brought it to the next level of preeminence. This is akin to Buddhism, which was actually introduced to China from India. It took root and developed in China, and eventually become deeply entrenched in the Chinese traditional culture. Today, China is the country with the largest population of Buddhists in the world. For this to happen, deep complementarity between different cultures must happen. In the context of globalization, we should be working to cultivate and consolidate cross-cultural characters, advocating new concepts of cultural developments, and establish a kind of value that is inclusive across different ethnicities. After all cultures are assets to mankind.